Witnessing a good comedian, you're witnessing somebody who believes in themselves, and that is very appealing. Somebody said if you believe in yourself, people will pay money to watch you because it's so unusual. You shut up for an hour and a half, and I will tell you the things that I think are funny.
Tonight, I'm at New York's Comedy Cellar, preparing the final meal for one of my favorite comedians, Gary Gulman.
It's not the objects, but the experiences that are worth the investment. I'm really happy that I learned that at a young enough age.
Gary is one of the world's sharpest and introspective comics. With a deep interest in culture, philosophy, and language, Gary often candidly reflects on his struggles with anxiety and depression.
I had to learn to not bring my self-esteem up with me. And that was not easy, but that was probably the biggest change I made to be able to grow as a comedian, because if you go up there every night protecting your self-esteem, you're going to be more protective of the choices you make. There was a time when I wouldn't bring up these things because I was literally ashamed that I still thought about it.
Tonight, we take a look at the man behind the laughter.
These are very good questions. This is not your average podcast.
And discover what this masterful entertainer has learned about what makes for a good life.
There's the stage and then there's the audience. The audience is where people go to live.
Yeah.
And the stage is where people go to die. You ever played a funeral?
Yeah, I did time at my dad's funeral, and I absolutely murdered.
This is Last Meal, where I prepare the dish my guest would want if it were their last.
You and I have a very similar upbringing in one very specific sense.
Okay.
That I've heard you talk about, that you were a Mallrat as a kid.
Yeah.
And when I was growing up, my mother used to work in shopping centers.
Oh, cool.
And I used to spend a lot of time after school while she was working, walking around the shopping center, right?
Okay.
And I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your experience there, because for me, it was a lot of interacting with people who weren't in my demographic.
Yeah.
And like older people and things like that.
Yes.
And also getting a little bit of a window into people's lives with whom I wouldn't connect normally.
Right.
Did you have that experience?
That's a great point. I hadn't thought about that. There wasn't even the term Mallrat when I was growing up, but my mom worked at a Hallmark store called Murray's, and she was not allowed to keep me there while she was there. So as early as like 7 or 8 years old, I would just walk around the mall, and she'd give me money to buy food, so I became a fixture at this hot dog stand named Orange Julius, and it was all teenagers working there. And so I became like a mascot and a hype man for all these teenage kids, and they really embraced me and would, during their breaks, sit with me, and they would give me, eventually, I didn't have to pay for hot dogs. I didn't have to pay for anything. And so when you talk about demographics, that's very interesting, because I knew everyone from the people who swept the floors to the general manager of Sears from working there, Mr. Boulanger. So I really got to know security people and figure out who was who. And my mother was incredibly witty and gregarious, so she knew everybody in the mall, and the fact that I was Barb's son carried a lot of weight, and everybody just adored her, and I felt very special at the mall because I was outgoing and precocious, and that was appealing to these people. So I knew teens, and I knew empty nesters, older women. That was sort of the demographic of the people working at the mall, and then there were people who were sort of in the administrative type of roles.
Yeah, but it gives you like this sort of broad cross section of people that I think when you're 10 or 12, you would never run into these people.
Yes.
And it's sort of like a great, like I'm not a comedian, but I do like observing human behavior a lot. And I think that's necessary to be a comedian. And so did you think in some way that was like a framework upon which your observations were built in a way? Or maybe an openness to that?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting idea. I'm not sure. I think more than that, I realized how powerful being funny could be. And how
that's a good point.
Just how repeating things I had heard said on TV or in movies, or making up my own things, that was I realized that was great currency for making friends and getting attention, which I think ultimately was the motivating factor in
but also bridging that divide between an adult and a child.
Yes.
If you could be funny.
Yeah. I remember and I talked about this in the book. I loved the hat that Dr. Teeth wore in the Muppet movie. So it was a hat that generally I think belonged to pimps. So I asked what that was called of my brother. He said it's called a pimp hat. And so I went into various clothing stores in the mall and asked for a pimp hat.
Brilliant.
At 8 years old.
Yep.
And this got a huge laugh. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was not expecting that from this desire to have a huge hat with a feather in it.
Which you probably thought looked quite refined. And that you were like an 8-year-old with a pimp hat. You're like, I'm stylish.
Of course, I never found it because they didn't sell pimp hats at this mall. I don't know where pimps got their hats back then. It was probably like wherever the rock and rollers shopped. It would be that type of thing. But I just
now it's where the drag queens shop for their
right. I realized that I could get attention by being funny, and so the observations, that's very interesting. The other thing that was that there were all types of different people in the store, so I became friendly with the guys who sold organs and pianos, and that was fun because you get to listen to people play piano, and I got to be friendly with tobacconists, which I generally wouldn't have intersected with, but there was a Perkins tobacco shop in the mall, and so I got to know all kinds of people. It was really a special experience that I can't imagine happens very, very frequently now, that there would be two men who have similar memories. Yeah.
Yeah, I was reading a little bit about your, definitely your upbringing, which I'm sure we'll get onto a little bit later, but also that you had a bit of a varied career before you got into comedy. I read somewhere that you were an accountant for a couple of years.
Yeah, I worked for what is now PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Yeah.
And at the time was Coopers and Lybrand. And I was telling somebody this last night, another comedian, how funny some of my colleagues were in accounting. And maybe it's just that I always gravitate towards funny people wherever I am, so I was self-selecting a group. But the idea usually is that accountants are never funny, although Bob Newhart was an accountant.
Was he? I didn't know that he was an accountant.
Yeah.
I used to love him growing up.
Oh my gosh, he was my idol.
Yeah. My grandfather had an old LP of Bob Newhart.
Oh,
and when I used to go over to England, he used to put it on for me.
That's incredible.
And with the driving instructor and all the,
Yes, and Abe Lincoln versus Madison Avenue, which I think is, I always say that's like the Rosetta Stone of modern comedy, because it is so well done and so smart and really just
I see a
that
bit
it still holds up.
Yeah,
Oh yes,
I see a bit of him and you.
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, I feel like that my most famous joke about abbreviating the states is
it's
really
one of my favorites of all time.
Well, thank you. It's just an updating of Abe Lincoln
Yeah.
versus Madison Avenue. It's just taking this thing that's ridiculous and putting it into a business atmosphere. So I mean, I don't think I deliberately said how can I adapt this.
No. Yeah,
but I
but
think
the influences that shape you.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say that about having funny people in accounting, because not that I've ever experienced that firsthand, I should declare, but I think context plays a big role in what's funny and what isn't.
Truly.
And so when if you're in an accounting firm, any joke, as pithy as it may be on surface, but it's like one of those things where, when you see these recordings of like the Queen or something like that, and they say something that's a little bit unexpected, and everyone in the room,
Right. Oh,
if
yes.
anyone else said that, you'd be like, who the fuck would say that?
I know.
But it's context, right?
Yeah, and it's
because
why,
it's the Queen.
It's why funerals are such good rooms. You can really.
You ever played a funeral?
Yeah, I did time at my dad's funeral, and I absolutely murdered. To the point where the rabbi tried to do some religious aspect afterward, and I had to tell him, Rabbi, you don't do time after the headliner.
That's right. You're not going to follow this.
Yeah, you can't. And of all the headliners.
Yeah. Well, okay, that actually gets onto a question that I had that sort of actually circumnavigates the prior one, which is that how do you feel about the way that we use comedy to get over, let's say, trauma and dark parts of our lives? Do you see it as something that actually tackles issues directly, as in it holds a mirror up to them? Or do you see it more as avoidance and escapism?
Oh, wow. I think probably both, all three. I think there can be, I think so many of us will self-deprecate to avoid the feeling of receiving a compliment or love or sentimental moments. And then there are times when you say something funny to bring some, because it's warming in a way, because it's a connecting software comedy. And so I feel like that can happen, and probably that's why you do so well at a funeral. In addition to the context being there, like you said, there's also this thing where these people are hurting and grieving, and they want something to remind themselves of the opposite feeling, which I think is laughter. And I wonder how it's an interesting idea how close they are together in terms of the type of chemistry going on there, or the type of reactions your brains are doing, because it's just a good cry can be as valuable as a good laugh, I've found, and
a laugh cry is really good.
Right,
doing both at once.
Isn't that something? I mean, I could probably count on one hand how many laugh cries I've had, but they're a really special experience that of course it's interesting, because I feel like my latest show where I do kind of a one-person show, where there are some heavy moments, but within the heavy moments, I'm able to throw in get some laughs in spite of myself, and I wonder if the audience is having those types of laugh cry moments where you're bummed out, and then you laugh because something absurd or very, I guess, relevant would, like I talk a lot about my upbringing, and there's a sad story, but then I talk about the fact that my mom, when I told her I wanted to do comedy, she said, "You don't make us laugh. Why don't you start by making us laugh?" And maybe it's also the context where people are looking for a laugh because they're just so bummed out by the story preceding it. So these are very good questions. This is not your average podcast.
Not your average podcast. Sorry to have disappointed you.
No, they're just unprepared and asking the same things that I've been asked about, and it's like, and they have maybe a vague acquaintance with my Wikipedia page or something. So this is delightful.
Well, I appreciate that. I guess let's circle back then to the stuff about the career, because I have seen this with some people that are in creative fields where they start out in something that's not very creative, and they give it a shot for a few years, and they just can't fucking do it. Like, there's something in them that is like, I will kill myself at the end of this day if I keep doing this job. Was that how it was for you? Was there something inside of you where you were like, I need to be doing clubs every night, and at some point you have to break free of that and just dedicate your life?
I mean, I was raised to find a profession and cling to it, and avoid the insecurity that is life by doing that. And that's a valid, but in my head, stifling type of strategy. And so I started doing accounting, and I didn't mind the classes, and I enjoyed the people who were in my classes, and it was interesting, and I like numbers. I'm not great with math, but I do like to play with numbers, and for some reason that gives me some energy. But when I was an accountant, I was really something called an auditor, which you go around and you check people's work. And so the hardest part for me was to get people who I couldn't imagine were making much more than me and asking them to do more in their job. And I think there was also an anxiety. The auditors are here. I think there was anxiety over that. And it really put me off. And then I opened up the CPA test handbook or the preparation test or whatever. And I looked at them and I was like, I don't remember hardly any of this from my college that I just graduated 6 months prior, and I really do not want to keep studying this thing that I can barely tolerate right now. And also I think that, but the main thing I think was that I could not find a rationalization for how this was contributing in any way to as the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation say at the end of all PBS programs, a more just and verdant society. I don't know.
Verdant?
Yes. I always love that they say verdant. And I believe it was, I want to think that it was Catherine T. MacArthur that said it. Verdant.
Yeah.
I insist on verdant.
It's not good enough to be just.
At the very least, people will be discussing it if we use verdant. So I was like, what am I doing here? I'm not even making anybody more comfortable in any manner. I'm doing the opposite. I'm making these people who work hard do more work. And what maybe I could get rich someday if I become a partner, but doing something that I dread for 40 to sometimes 70, 80 hours a week, I can't reconcile this. And so I just started doing more comedy and writing. And then at about a year and a half there, I started taking jobs that people would call maybe odd jobs in that they didn't really have a through line. Like I was a substitute teacher, and I was a barista at Starbucks. And those were the types of jobs I was doing while doing stand-up at night. And I was a waiter with a comedian named Robert Kelly. Do you know? Oh yeah, he works here at the Cellar all the time.
Bald guy.
There's nobody funnier in the world, and he was such a delight to wait tables with. Yeah. And he got me into an acting program, and he's a great actor. So it was really, and just like the mall in comedy, you run into people and demographics that you never would have intersected with. And so that's one of the
doing
one of
the jobs.
beautiful,
I'm guessing, like that's where you get all of your material, right? Is actually having a job outside of
certainly
outside of comedy.
Yeah, and I've found over the years that being broke or working class or hating your job is evergreen, and you will always be able to get laughs from, because it's also self-deprecating, which I think is appealing to talk about how poorly you're doing in capitalism. But there's also this thing which I think comedians can do so well for good, but also for bad, but for good, which is to let people, humans, off the hook for not being good at something, for not being successful, for not being rich. But then the other side, yes, they let them off the hook for being immoral troglodytes and violent or whatever, or bigoted or misogynistic or homophobic, and that I don't think is good. But letting us off the hook for having mental illnesses or for being promiscuous, things like that. That's really good. And so I really think that's one of the best aspects of comedy that I received growing up, which is like, I saw these guys, I've recently started describing certain comedy styles as professional losers, and I mean that in the best sense.
I know exactly what you mean by that.
I thought like Gary Shandling and Richard Lewis, they would tell you how bad they were doing in their dating life and how neurotic they were, and so they sort of were like what the idea of the sacrificial lamb or something like that. That they were paying for this, and then you feel, oh my gosh, my life is not as bad as that, and also it appears that these guys are dating. That's
we're all in this together. They're not doing well, and they're getting paid to be up on stage about it. It can't be that bad.
It was wonderful.
That's great. But it's interesting because you went from somewhere where, and I think a lot of the problem that people have when they're in jobs like you had in accounting or something like that, is that you're so many parts removed from the person whose life your job changes. Right? Your numbers on a sheet, and and then somewhere down the line, someone has a tax deduction or something. And that does make a difference. It's not that you didn't make a difference. Sure. It's just that you don't see that. And what you did is you went full circle to a room where you get thrown up on stage And if you do well, you change everyone's life, and you see it in the moment.
Right. The instant feedback is really great. But as you say that, I think there could have been a way, working for a nonprofit or a college or something like that, where I would have felt comfortable, like I was helping the general cause of humanity.
I think it was actually when we were at your show the other week, and we were sitting because we didn't get tickets, it sold out. And so we actually were on standby. So we got pushed into that back little room just to kind of wait to see if we could come in.
Yeah.
And I'm standing there, and I think what were a few comics kind of walking past, and then people going out to have their night out. And I said to Lauren, I was like, the interesting thing about comedy clubs is like, there's the stage and then there's the audience. The audience is where people go to live.
Yeah.
And the stage is where people go to die.
Oh.
And I think it's one of the only places on earth that is like that.
Yeah.
Because as you're saying, you get up there, you're self-deprecating, you're putting everything on the line.
Yeah.
You're the most vulnerable. And then if people don't laugh, that's the fucking, I don't even know what that feels like, right?
Yeah.
Well, I have a similar sort of, I do speaking and stuff like that, and if it doesn't resonate well, I know what that feeling is, right? But an order of magnitude more for a comic, because the expectation is there that the room fills up with laughter, and if you don't do it, it's just a death.
Right.
But at the same time, you're occupying the same space. This is what people do when they're having fun.
Yeah.
It's like being thrown to the lions as a Christian back in the Roman times or something.
Yes. I mean, I had to learn to not bring my self-esteem up with me on stage, that wouldn't be on the line. And that was not easy, but that was probably the biggest change I made to be able to grow as a comedian, because if you go up there every night protecting your self-esteem, you're going to be more protective of the choices you make for jokes, and
you'll do less well at making the jokes,
and you'll make less jokes, and you won't. So you have to swing and miss to get better or more interesting jokes. And so I mean, but of course that took me years of therapy to figure out that I was putting my self-esteem on the line. And it was actually a quote from Thomas Beckett, and it's been co-opted by tech bros, but that doesn't make it any less profound. But he said, ever tried, ever failed, no matter. Try again, fail better, and that became sort of my mantra since I started sort of in this creative spurt that I am in over the past 8 years, which was failing as long as you tried something that was difficult or a little bit risky is really as big a win as trying and doing something that works. It's part of the same creative effort, and it's funny because you decide on that, and then you find corroboration for it everywhere you read about creativity. That's one of the main things they say.
Absolutely,
is to fail.
Totally, because it's a feedback activity, right?
Yes.
And I read your tips to comics that you wrote, which were brilliant.
Thanks.
And when I was reading it, I was thinking to myself, because you put a lot of emphasis on constantly being writing and trying things and just going out. And I'm really big on the concept of anti-fragility, which is that, the more challenges you face in life, the stronger you become if you take a particular mindset towards it.
Yeah.
I believe it's something that I've gone through inadvertently. I try to transpose that idea onto others. But a lot of it deals with, the way that I think it happens is having momentum, right? Because having momentum in any sort of situation gives feedback from the world. And as you were saying in one of your points, it's like, even if it's that self-discipline of just write, just keep writing, right? And tell friends that your jokes and just get feedback all the time. And even if you're writing just absolute bullshit, it doesn't matter, because you're getting feedback and things are happening, and that is getting momentum.
Yeah.
You advocated somewhat for sort of a cross-pollination effect when being creative, as not just being into comedy, but you've got to read books and art and really getting deep into culture. Do you think that's as good a suggestion for how you live your life as it is for how to write comedy?
Oh my word, that is so true. Yes. And I think, while I didn't intend that to be, I think maybe that's why those tips seem to resonate outside of comedy, and I would get people who were musicians and artists of different types, visual, and they would say that, but that was not my intention. I was just writing about jokes, but to your point, which which I don't think I've ever said that expression out loud, to your point. Momentum, I always say inertia, which is the same thing. Like, inertia is, they say, an object in motion will stay in motion unless it's interrupted. And so I find that if I am binging The Simpsons, I will keep binging The Simpsons. But if I literally open up my notebook and write the date, which seems to be the hardest part of the thing, because I will put it off for hours.
Because it's the first thing.
Yes.
That's why. Yeah.
And it's interrupting your inertia, your momentum going towards The Simpsons. And The Simpsons is a really good one, because you'll say, oh my gosh, that joke is so good. I need to work harder. And so I'll turn it off and I'll open up my notebook. And sometimes I'll just start with the quote that inspired me, and I'll put it in
that's
quotes,
good. I like
so
that.
people won't think if my
but
notebooks are ever found. But
but you're leveraging the procrastination at that point, right? You're actually,
totally. And I think that was also one of my tips, was that Hunter S. Thompson had written longhand The Great Gatsby to know what it felt like. And I think that's really interesting with comedy, because my wife pointed out to me that comedy has a different grammar and a different style than regular even poetry or different things like that.
Definitely.
Like there's a grammar and there's a shorthand and things to make jokes a little briefer. So yeah, but I totally agree with you about the momentum, and I also think that I've built a denser life by and I don't want to think that it's mercenary to, I'm only going to the art museum because I want to become a better comedian. You love the paintings. But also, I saw, and it was an Edward Hopper painting, I think, where he put this little piece of white, a little white smudge on a lamppost, and I was like, I bet you he thought about that for a while, and he may have taken it down, he may have adjusted, he may have added to it, and it's much easier to do that with a joke than oil paints and canvas and all this. So I felt the same way after seeing a Bruce Springsteen documentary about the writing of, it was either Born to Run or Darkness on the Edge of Town, and it was clear that he analyzed and sweated over every note from every instrument and was just so attuned to that, and I was like, well, it's much easier to pay attention to every word and every joke. It's not as hard.
Interesting.
Every instrument, every note. So and he's one of the best to ever do it. So I think I can pay attention to every word and every sentence. That's not very heavy lifting. And it's also very, very fun to examine, to try to find the best word.
It's one of the things. Actually, you know what? Before I go on with this, because we would get stuck into conversation perhaps for 3 hours.
I forgot about the meal.
And then we're gonna.
That's so funny.
You're like, I'm so eloquent and interesting. I forgot about the meal. Okay, because we're going to talk about this for a little bit, and then I want to get back to comedy and you. Okay.
Yeah.
So Gary Gulman, your last meal is a vegan BLT.
Oh my word! It is gorgeous.
Is it?
Yes.
It's a BLT. How can it be gorgeous?
Well,
how can you go to the top shelf with that adjective?
But just think about this: the placement of the frilly toothpicks is. And it brings back a lot of memories. I could do a whole routine on this sandwich, because my father didn't tell a lot of funny stories. He told mostly stories about him either receiving a beating on the streets of the Bronx or giving one, and also about what a difficult father and upbringing he had. But he would always tell this story about how the first time he went to a restaurant and ate a sandwich with the frilly toothpicks, he didn't know what the purpose was, and he said he got into great humiliation because he ate around it. He ate around the toothpick trying to avoid it. He didn't think to take it out. And I thought that was one of my favorite stories about him. And he was not a dumb,
I want to know how close
he just
got
wasn't
to it.
Worldly. And I always picture it just being a perfect tower surrounded by the things, not wanting to, but yeah, this is really beautiful. And then the stripes from the press are beautiful.
Which we have to thank Nome for, because we are here in the Comedy Cellar and they have a panini press here.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
And the placement of the green lettuce and the faux bacon strips hanging out.
We're going to talk about the faux bacon, because you made me go into Whole Foods at Columbus Circle and ask for vegan bacon, which is I can't believe I have a bone to pick with you before we'd even sat down to have a meal.
I'm so sorry. That's a busy Whole Foods.
It is. I think the busiest I've ever been in. It was just like being at a fucking airport. And I hate airports because everybody treats them like a supermarket.
Oh.
Ironically. Yeah. Or an art gallery, one of the two. I'm always walking really fast in an airport, get to my destination.
Yeah, but everybody's dawdling.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
We all have places to go.
No, I know.
Yeah. Works?
Oh, wow.
So that's the bacon product you wanted, and also the vegan mayo thing. Yeah.
Oh, it's fucking...
Yeah.
No, it's perfect. My word. Yeah, I mean, this was the first meal I ever made on my own.
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt your eating,
but it's incredible. It's like you get the combination of the smell and the taste, which are two of our best memory senses.
And what does this meal remind you of?
My kitchen at 2 Rutledge Road in Peabody, Massachusetts, from about probably as long as I can remember, so probably about age 4 till about age 8, I think the BLT was still being made in my house. I don't know how I fell out of love with the BLT. I must have moved on to some other easier sandwich for me to make. That was the thing, is that I was doing most of my own meal preparation after 7 or 8, so I wouldn't have been able to make the BLT. I would make an LT, and I could spread the mayo and everything like that, but it wouldn't be toasted. I mean, that's the great thing. My mother would infrequently toast the bread, so this is just next level.
Right.
But the tomato is really good, because it's hard to find a tomato in 2026 that tastes like a 1976 tomato. I
Sounds
wonder
like a
if they
car when you
lost
say it like this.
I wonder if they lost the recipe for tomatoes in the field. Every once in a while, you'll get a good heirloom or something like that. But this is really
I struggle finding
a throwback tomato.
And you said tomato too.
That's how old this taste is.
It's changing your pronunciation.
We're still calling it tomato. The bacon for vegan.
Yeah.
You could have fooled me. And
really?
Said, I was slipped just from real bacon. It's really, this is the best. This is the best BLT I've ever had in my life.
That's amazing then. That's great news.
Yeah, it's awesome, because my mother wouldn't toast the bread, and the lettuce was like this crappy iceberg lettuce, and the tomatoes were good, and she made a good bacon. But this is extraordinary. I'm in heaven. If this, as Kurt Vonnegut said, whenever you're really enjoying yourself in life, you should take a moment to say, if this isn't nice, I don't know what is. And so my wife and I say that.
That's good.
Say that a lot.
I'm going to try and adopt that. Do you remember any? I remember my grandfather used to have this saying when he was alive, and he lived in England, and I would visit my grandparents, every year or every couple of years or something. Whenever everybody was leaving the house, he would say, "We're off like a herd of turtles," right?
Wow.
And it's not a funny thing to say per se, but if you say it 850 times,
it's awesome.
It becomes really funny. And then it goes beyond funny and it starts becoming hilarious, to the point where, like, my auntie, Michael, we'd sit around, we're walking out, we're like watching, we're like, shh, he's going to say it. Like, it's coming. So the anticipation builds.
Yeah.
Do you have any memories like that from childhood where, something a parent or a relative or a friend used to say something to you that stuck?
Oh, I mean, a million things, but I remember my mom's friend Joni, who would come over and was just so energetic and paid attention and would watch my magic shows, and I would also give a weather report that I was making up. And she would leave and say, "I'm off like a prom dress," And I thought, oh my gosh, that is a brilliant joke. Maybe it was in the general population at that time.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, that's a great.
I haven't heard that one.
That's a great joke.
That's pretty good.
And sometimes she would just say, bah! But we were from Massachusetts, so nobody had kind of that southern accent. But she would put it on for her, bah! And that always made me happy. She would come over and she smoked, and the cigarette smell would linger, and I would luxuriate in it. It was really, she was really. I still, whenever I go back to Massachusetts, I visit her. She's at 85 now, and and we sit, and that's the other thing. She used to make me lunch. She came over. She would make my mother and I lunch. She would make us tuna, and she would toast the bread. Tuna, it was really.
Oh, she toasted the bread,
yeah,
so she was already.
She was really. Yeah, Joni is something else. Yeah.
Do you think there's any connect? A lot of great comics around seem to come from your area of the United States, and then there's a lot that come from here. Mm-hmm. What do you think the connection with great comics and misery is? Like in terms of weather and hardship and how much it costs to live somewhere and pressure and just, you know what I mean? Like, I have no idea how any comic survives living here, if you're starting out.
Oh, I know. No,
like, how do you do? What do you do?
I have no idea.
Because I don't even know how people who work at Starbucks fucking live here. How do you do both those things?
No. I mean, you have a lot of roommates.
Yeah.
That was my case at one point in my life, in my career. I was so broke that I was in my 40s and had 3 roommates. Yeah, in my 40s, and this is the most shocking part of it, and a girlfriend. In that state, I was able to attract a woman who became my wife, and the thing is it's really a testimony to my charm, but also my wife not being like materialistic or trying to marry money or whatever, because I couldn't have been more broke. And it was, I mean, it's funny because it wasn't the easiest time of my life, but it was one of my favorite periods. I was doing comedy. I was making my rent by doing as many spots in the city as I could, and occasionally getting some road work. But it was very, I guess, rewarding both professionally and personally. That period where I had these, and I was really close friends particularly with one of my roommates who was a comedian named Ryan Hamilton, who's really terrific, and you should look for him on Netflix. He has 2 specials on Netflix. So, yeah, that was a really special time.
So, but this intersects, I guess, a little bit with, we were talking about your tips for other comedians before, which I believe you wrote out of a sense of survivor's guilt.
Yes. And that also dovetails with Kurt Vonnegut, who wrote, I forget what the book was, but it was a foreword to somebody else's book, and he was talking about the survivor's guilt that he felt from having survived World War II. And he said, it was miraculous. I wasn't smarter, tougher, or stronger than anybody. It was just, I was luckier, and so I survived World War II because he was in the Battle of the Bulge, and he was a prisoner of war, and he was in Dresden when it was firebombed, and he survived that. So he said, I was just lucky. So I have this survivor's guilt, and he said, I also have survivor's guilt in literature, because he said, and this is what grabbed me, he said, the audiences have failed so many great artists, writers, and then he said, comedians. And I was like, I know. And then so I sort of, I got to a point where I wasn't worrying about making rent every month. And I was so grateful after I got a special on HBO at a very late age to have a first HBO special. I think I was 46 or 45. And so I hopped up on coffee on New Year's Eve. I said to my wife, what do you think that people would say if I gave a tip about comedy and all the things I've known every day? And she said, I think they would love it. And so,
of course,
and that was the only encouragement I needed. And so I did it. I did not realize how hard it would be to come up with a new one for 365 days. And also that even keeping track of that number, I realized that I had perhaps started on December 31st or gave 2 one day because I wound up giving 366 tips, and it wasn't a leap year. So I don't know how that happened, but I'm glad it did. And I still get so many nice messages from comedians who say they use that to get better at comedy. And of course part of it is, and I came across this idea in East of Eden by John Steinbeck, where somebody said, all advice is given for yourself, right? So you're giving advice because, 1, it feels good to give advice.
Yeah.
And 2, you need that advice just as much as the person you're giving. So it was 100%. Really, it was
but also you have this benefit of objectivity when you're giving it to another person.
Yeah.
And I think that's why people often think it's easy to give advice to others but hard to take it themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so it really retrained me to do certain things that I had either forgotten that I did or had stopped doing, and that was really helpful, and so it reinforced what I knew, and also as a byproduct, some comedians got some good advice out of it. So I was very, and also I think subconsciously I was trying to create a race of super comedians.
I think that's you haven't succeeded yet, just to let you know, by the way.
The bottom line is trying to take over the world.
One of the things that I noticed about your style of comedy, and you just generally over the years watching you seem to have an almost surgical precision memory for things.
Oh,
it could be words or phraseology, and even when you talk about where you lament certain memories, you have a very precise memory, which for somebody who were going through trauma or depression could be a prison.
Yeah.
Is that how that was for you?
Yeah, because a lot of when you're in a depressed state, your memories are assaulting you and being viewed through the depressed mind, which is going to look for the worst and render very stark judgments for instance, regrets feel much more powerful. It's so interesting that when I was in the depths of depression, I could not stop thinking about something I had said to a girl in my neighborhood when I was 8 years old, and crying about it, and feeling that was just evidence of why I shouldn't be allowed to live. And even with the therapist's perspective saying you were an 8-year-old boy, I was like, no. But then when I came out of the depression, I still remember that, and I think, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. If there were a time machine, I would go back and I would apologize. And I know I apologized at the time, and I felt terrible even at the time. But it's just an interesting way in which your brain under the depression prism will make things capital offenses. Yeah.
So how were you able to pull yourself through that time? Because it was a while, and it was a dark time for you, right?
Yeah. It started in the spring of 2015 and lasted through the fall of 2017. So
see, that's oddly specific, isn't it? I just warned you about that, didn't I?
And I had grown up having periods from the time I was 7, periods of every year that I was not myself, that I know now I was depressed and anxious, but it would usually start to lessen as the days got longer. So I would fall apart every winter, and then that year in 2015, I had one that didn't break when the spring came, and it didn't break when the summer came, and then 2 years later, and of course, so I would say the way I came out of it was a million things, but the biggest things were a psychiatric stay at Weill Cornell at 68th in York, and
just in case anyone wants to check.
That lasted for 3 weeks. And involved something that I'd probably put off too long, but I was afraid of it because of the movie One Flew Over a Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, yeah.
The Cuckoo's Nest, and so I had electroconvulsive therapy, and I think that
Did you?
yeah, that was very effective in getting me to the point where the medicine that I was starting to take at that time could work, and then I got to the point where I was able to get out, be around people, enjoy things because that's one of the things that people won't even bring up when they're depressed. They don't bring up, well, I don't enjoy reading, I don't enjoy watching baseball, or I don't enjoy going to movies anymore. But that's a big part of life.
Of course,
having
it is.
things to look forward to, and
it's
and
arguably all of it.
Yeah, and so that takes out a lot of the motivation for living, and so those things started to happen. I was able to enjoy things. I can remember exactly the first movie that I was able to enjoy. It was Baby Driver, and I saw that, and I was like, wait a minute, what is going on here? If I feel like this tomorrow morning, and then I started to feel well and started to enjoy basketball, and then you start to do the exercising, you start getting out with the friends, you start doing comedy again, and it all builds on itself, and now I have the life that I imagined I was capable of. And it's been uninterrupted. I have a day here and there, and I've had a few days where the time changes and travel have thrown me off, and I've gotten into a funk. But those can be cured with enough daylight and exercise. And so I've had pretty much on the whole 8 years of uninterrupted. I'm not jumping around clicking my heels all day long, but I feel like I'm facing life the same way a person who is not compromised by a mental illness is.
Yeah, that's really good.
I mean, I'm
so
grateful,
it's iterative, effectively.
Grateful every day. Yes.
Yeah. And you just have to work on every little aspect. But I think, it's interesting that you say the exercise and also the getting to enjoy things again.
Yeah.
And obviously the relationships you have with people are so important.
Yes.
You need to be able to enjoy that.
Yes, I mean that's one of my greatest assets is the friends I've made, and many, if not most of them, from comedy.
How do you think, if at all, your comedy has changed before and after?
Oh, it's interesting, and I can break it down and reduce it to a pronoun. An observation comedian frequently mostly says you do this, and you know how you do that, and if you do that, and you ever notice, and then I became more I do this, if you do this, that's great, but I do this, and it's not a incredibly courageous or brave thing. But for somebody who is afraid to be vulnerable and exposed, it's a big difference. You're saying
huge difference, yeah.
Yeah, you're saying that I may be different, and I'm okay with that. And
I'm not one of you necessarily.
Yeah. And it's just and so then you have to think of things to make funny from your own life, and so it's interesting because I still have some jokes that are pure observation. But then you try to put as much of you and try to make it, well, I want it to be that nobody else could do this. And it used to be I would just choose things that were so obscure that nobody would think to do this, like tell the story of how states were abbreviated. And now it becomes even more, it's easier to be original if you're only drawing from your own life specific aspects, not just the things of when I fly or when I go to McDonald's, but when I am for one special it was for when I am depressed, and for the latest one it's when I was in first grade for the second time, which is sort of the premise of my, not the premise, but the through line story of my one person show that I want to film in the fall. Or will be filming in the fall.
And also, I think as you do get older, there's a stronger sense of self that you develop, and so you can actually draw from that more material than a younger person may be able to.
Yeah, no, totally. And you have a little bit more confidence that your experiences are are a reflection of the human condition rather than your bizarre lifestyle. But there's also comedians who just blow you away with how bizarre their lifestyle is and their background. It's fascinating, and I love that. Yeah.
I have a few sort of quickfire questions to give you, and then I'm going to let you eat.
I just want to say that the only reason I'm not eating this the entire time is I'm enjoying your conversation. So.
This is really the only awkward part of this show, is that somebody has to eat, but they're also expected to answer questions.
Right,
it's not something that I'd anticipated operationally before we started.
But it's an awesome way to get people to open up and feel comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it that you're, it's vaping, but is there a flavor to it or anything like that? Oh,
just
the nicotine.
Just tobacco flavor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I smoked a pack a day until maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and it was the only thing that got me off cigarettes.
Nice. Yeah, I quit like 15 years ago.
Oh, wow. Cold turkey?
2010? Yeah. Cold turkey, yeah.
Cold turkey is apparently the most effective way.
Yeah, but I used this book called The Easy Way to Quit Smoking.
Oh, I've heard about that. Was it good?
British guy, Alan Carr.
Yeah.
It was miraculous.
Yeah?
I smoked right through reading it.
It tells you to do that, doesn't it? Yeah, I've heard. That's what I've heard about.
I smoked a lot all through reading it, and then a few days after I finished it, I was like, the main thing was I was like, you're addicted.
Yeah.
It's not pleasurable. They tell you to decide while you're smoking it whether you're enjoying it, or are you enjoying the relief from the withdrawal since your last cigarette. And I was like, oh yeah, it's just feeding me this thing that I'm addicted to, and that's why I like it. And then 3 days later, I stopped, and I've had one cigarette since. Yeah,
it's pretty good.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
Wanted to pick something up about comedy to lead into one of my quickfire questions. So, one of the reasons I love comedians, I interview a lot of scientists and writers and thinkers and public intellectuals, but I actually consider comics to be some of the smartest people on the planet, because they need to not only understand an idea but distill it into something manageable like a joke. And you know that trope of kind of like, you don't really understand something unless you can explain it to a 5-year-old?
Yeah.
I think you don't understand something until you can make a joke about it.
Oh, interesting.
Because I think you need all of the different complex facets of an idea to be able to understand the power dynamics and the interplay, to be able to distill it down to this really easily digestible joke that almost anyone could laugh at, whether it has levels on it.
Right.
And so I'm interested to know, what are some things that you've learned about life that I think you've sort of processed through the mill of comedy, or your mill of comedy, that were kind of life lessons that you would have liked to have known earlier if given the opportunity?
Oh. This will be my third Kurt Vonnegut quote, but my favorite Vonnegut book is a book called The Sirens of Titan. And it covers the life of the richest man who ever lived. And he was the richest man who ever lived because somebody told him to buy stock in companies based on the words in a Bible passage. And he became the equivalent of a trillionaire.
Yeah, right.
And then he passed it on to his son, who was a schmuck of epic proportion. But his partner, or his chief of staff or whatever, was the second richest man in the world. And he had become the second richest man in the world by knowing one thing, that people will tell you all day long that when you ask them how they're doing, they'll say, I'm great, I couldn't be better, things are so great. And he said, this man knew that the opposite was true, that they were miserable. Yeah. And he said it gave him an advantage in every business transaction he had. And so I don't think it's that stark. I don't think everybody is perfectly miserable. But I think I've learned over the years that the expression of your flaws and misery is a salve to people that they, and it's again with the idea of letting people off the hook, that they feel a little bit better when they realize this. And I think this is the bottom line of why the people are so miserable. And it's a theme of a lot of great writing, but especially Kurt Vonnegut's, is that we're very lonely. And so when a comedian feels comfortable telling you something about himself, and then inevitably he wasn't the only one feeling that, they feel less alone. And that feels warm, and it's such a relief. And I don't know if that's the mechanism or reflex of laughter, but that relief, oh my gosh, I don't know the chemistry or the sociology of it, but laughter is it. I'm not sure about this, but I think it remains a mystery as to what, because people will say, well, it's a contradictions can bring about it, but not every single one, not every contrast, not every comparison, and not every vulgarity can make people laugh. But it's interesting. And why do people laugh more when they're in a group than if they're alone? Because so it comes back to loneliness. But that's such a
well, it could also be a signal, I guess. I mean, what you're saying is really interesting about like that relatability and feeling not alone, because somebody so eloquently has said something that suddenly it's become common knowledge in the space that like, oh, I do that too behind closed doors, X, Y, Z. And you're like, oh yeah, we laugh. It means yes, we all admit that we do as well. And so it's a way of like a revealed experience, a revealed shared experience that nobody was able to put a finer point on than the person. Maybe it's that. So it's a sense of belonging in a way.
Certainly. But you said, I want to come back to you thinking that the comedians are some of the smartest people.
I don't think they know it, by the way.
I think the smartest comedians are some of the smartest people. I think there's also a section of comedy, and they remind me more of like con men in there, and I think I've heard the con man is short for confidence man.
Yes, confidence. Yeah,
and I heard maybe it was David Mamet who said that like they're giving you their confidence.
Okay.
And that I think is part of these are very charismatic comedians, but they're really very similar in aspect to the unctuous type of con man, but they can do really well in this business, because there is that business aspect of it where you're moving through a field that can reward relationships and good feelings about yourself. And also, I wish I knew who said this, but witnessing a good comedian, you're witnessing somebody who believes in themselves.
Yeah.
And that is very appealing. Somebody said if you believe in yourself, people will pay money to watch you because it's so unusual.
So you think that a successful comedian selects for a range of different personalities, which can include very brilliant people and also dark triad narcissists?
Yeah, do you think that too?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, now that you've said it, I think you might be right about that. Sure.
I think so. And there has to be some narcissism to want to have the arrogance to get up there and say, no, you shut up for an hour and a half and I will tell you the things that I think are funny.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's nuts.
Yeah, that's good.
It's nuts.
Okay, a couple more quickfire questions. What's an experience that you had in life that was worth every cent?
Oh man, I would say going to London this past year with my wife. I did some shows, but I didn't even break even, because it's expensive to get there and it's expensive to stay. But the experience we had, and I remember a comedian named Shane Moss, and this was corroborated in Michael Pollan's book about hallucinogenics. Shane said that you can get a similar experience to mushrooms or LSD or whatever from traveling to a place you've never been to, and that it opens up your mind and the different connections that your brain makes. And I found that to be such the case in London, and also to see my wife so in love with a city and still loving New York, but also thinking that London had different things and different aspects to offer, and just we had the time of our lives. And so and that's something I've learned later on in life is that it's not the objects, but the experiences that are worth the investment.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I'm really happy that I learned that at a young enough age that I can still travel extensively.
And I even love that from a perspective of if you were to buy a gift for somebody, I much prefer to give them an experience. And if we do that together, even better.
Yeah.
Like if it was your birthday, I'd be like, Gary, I'll take you out for dinner. Is better than saying like, here's an Xbox or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. My best friend since I was in 6th grade, he turned 50, and we went and traveled to Indiana to see the house Larry Bird grew up in, and then my friend's idea. He said, let's walk his walk to high school.
Oh, cute. That's
and that was really cool. And then we went to an Indiana University game and then a Purdue game in Indiana, and it was just it was such a great experience, and that was worth every cent too.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Did you get to meet Larry Bird?
Yes.
Oh, amazing. That's great.
Yes, when I was in 8th grade, I stood in line at this appliance store that he was signing posters for there was a video game called Larry Bird versus Dr. J in the 1980s, and he was signing posters, and I have the poster he signed up in my apartment.
Was he still playing in the 80s?
Yeah. He played until I think 91 or 92, and so this was probably after his first MVP award.
Right.
So it was really and he didn't necessarily shake everybody's hand, but I put up my hand and shook my hand. That was really
That's great.
It was really unforgettable. Yeah.
If you had to repeat a year of your life, which year would you repeat?
I mean, I think 2018 was so fun, and had just my brain was literally rewired that year, and also I was able to get a glimpse at my potential as a person who wasn't compromised by a mental illness. And I think I really enjoyed it a lot, and was present for it, which a lot of times when you're depressed, you're not present, and so you don't make memories. So I remember it very well, and it was so wonderful to see my wife, who had been so patient with me for 2.5 years. We weren't even married at the time, and to see her proud of me and so relieved to see me literally back on my feet, because I had been just in the corner of the couch or in bed most of the day. She told me afterwards, she was like, I thought you were dying, and it's just, oh man. Yeah, so that was a very special year, and I made probably one of my best friends of my life who directed the Great Depression. I just met him on a let's talk about this idea, and then we started talking just about every day. And it's hard to make friends in your 40s.
Yeah, that's true. That's amazing. Oh, that's a great answer. I love that. I actually grew up in America when I was young.
Okay.
Just for a few years before I moved to Australia.
Where in America?
Dallas.
Okay.
And I used to watch Mr. Rogers.
Oh.
And I noticed that your book, you had a Fred Rogers quote.
Yeah.
I'm going to read it.
Okay.
All our lives, we rework things from our childhood, like feeling good about ourselves, managing our angry feelings, and being able to say goodbye to people that we love. What does that quote mean to you?
I think again, he was letting me off the hook for spending so much time thinking about things from my childhood and things that affected me for better and a lot, many times worse, and that he was giving me permission to do that and not feel ashamed of it, because there was a time when I wouldn't bring up these things because I was literally ashamed that I still thought about it, and I thought what a relief when I read that, and it happened to be at the same time that I was writing about that time period. And I know some writers don't like to read a lot when they're writing, but I found it very inspirational and motivating to read while I was writing, and I just read a book of his aphorisms and adages and things like that happened to be published by the same company I was writing my book with, and then I saw the documentary about him. So I've always adored him, but I think it's called the epigraph to a book. But that sentiment really soothed me, because especially while writing that book, it was like, is this a pathology that you're still thinking about repeating the first grade, and you're still thinking about this beating you took outside the school when you were in 5th grade? Is this a problem? And he said, no, this is what we do, and it's okay. And that was his message in a nutshell. Yeah.
Gary Gulman.
This was delightful.
Thank you so much.
And you fed me.
It was an incredible conversation. Absolutely loved it.
I'm so glad you got in that night at the show.
Yeah.
Had I known, I would have gotten you a ticket. So in the future, just reach out to me.
We'll do, yeah.
You don't have to wind
won't be the
up
last time.
Yeah.
Enjoy that.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
And did you need a drink?
No, I think I'm good. I got some water. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Gary Gulman is an exemplar of not only what it's possible to achieve despite anxiety and depression, but also how to leverage challenges in our favour and use them as the raw materials for growth. While we know that life can often be a constant struggle, the small changes we make over time accumulate, making us stronger than we thought we could be. Gary's life and outlook is a timely reminder of this idea, and one that makes you laugh as much as you think. And that's all from me.
I'll start by addressing that question that I was going to ask you as we were talking before we started rolling. Okay. So it'll be more of a natural flow into the actual questions.
Okay. And before I forget, let me make my favorite hot mic joke I ever made up, which is Maury from Tuesdays with Maury was caught on a hot mic.
Yeah.
And I'm making this up, of course, but this is what I always imagined the relationship was between him and the author of Tuesdays with Maury. And this is Maury caught on a hot mic. Ah, fuck, it's Tuesday. I wish I could write more, but that's the only one I've been able to
that's really
come
good.
up with.
Yeah.